Hey guys, welcome back. BDC Care here. We're back with our weekly Q&A. This is Season 3, Episode 18. The first question comes from Meme King.
So actually, before we get into that, because this is going to be a longer video, can I just say, the last question is one of my favorite questions. Stick around if you want to hear it. But anyways.
Sneak preview.
Yeah.
Okay, so Meme King says, should I make my Arkham Knight Batman Elite 10? Because at Elite 10, more people use Astro Harness, which takes out the fun of using his special one.
So, you know, it's one of those questions where it depends. Are you a collector and you want to max out everybody? Or do you enjoy multiplayer online fights? In which case, max stat characters really face a lot less variety. Or maybe you're grinding for MP rewards. I mean, the sweet spot for me is that I like fighting. I like collecting, but not enough that I want to make MP total grind, right?
And I mean, if you have the extra characters, I feel like at that point you actually have done the collecting.
That's true.
I feel like, to me, having them actually elited isn't necessary for me to feel like they've been collected. It's having them available to be, and it's making that choice. The same way with like I feel better about having a bunch of crit chance and crit damage augments, and health and damage augments. And having the health and damage augments is enough, and I don't actually need to apply them to feel like I've accumulated that.
Right. To me, I think if your Arkham Knight Batman is already getting 5,000 battle points per fight, you're not going to get any more by max promoting him. You're going to actually have more difficult fights. There's going to be more guys using Astro Harness, like you said. So your grinding is actually potentially going to be harder, and it's going to be a more boring grind to actually play MP.
So I think it's the difference between variety and, to a certain extent, challenge. And I always prefer variety. A little bit more variety than a little bit more challenge is always the trade-off. And it seems like you get a lot more variety for only a little bit difference in challenge.
Yeah. If it were me and I was still already getting 5,000, which is pretty easy to do when he's only Elite 7, I would probably not.
So there we go. The next question comes from YUCK FASUO. I'm not sure. It's F-A-S-U-O. You can draw your own pronunciation conclusions from that. And they say, BDC Care Gaming, can I ask you guys a Q? Which team is better, Red Sun or Flashpoint?
All right, so for anybody else who's coming in at this cold, we've already done two sort of the best MP team and the second best MP team. And so we rated the Flashpoint team at only Elite 5, level 50 as the second best team, and with the first place guys being Arkham Knight Batman, Batgirl, and Injustice 2 Superman.
Yeah.
So my short answer is Flashpoint, and my longer answer is mostly Flashpoint. All right, so
I agree. I give the Red Sun team nostalgia value.
Yeah. In Red Sun team, we have to be very specific too, right? Any Red Sun team without Red Sun Green Lantern is absolutely worse. Period. Full stop. In my mind, there's no... If you're not going to be using Red Sun Green Lantern, the Red Sun team really suffers.
Yeah.
In the old days, the classic Red Sun team of Superman, Wonder Woman, Solomon Grundy was good enough for anything. And you can watch our older Red Sun team in our multiplayer video. But unfortunately, the meta of the game has completely passed it by.
Yeah, which makes sense because that's an old team.
Right.
That was kind of like the earliest synergies.
Right. So even when the gear was introduced, that was actually still a really good team. It's when they started really having the power creep and the newest legendary gears that you were going to run into trouble.
And then when they started making teams that had synergy with power creep.
Yes.
So they were better and they had the same kind of like level of synergy based abilities.
Now we're still talking about the classic team. The protection that the Red Sun Green Lantern gives, though, so he gives immunity to stun, immunity to crit, and I mean the reduction in specials is, you know, doesn't really matter as much. But those two, the immunity to stun, immunity to crit, that is spectacular. Like, I mean, what we're talking about is that loadout of the Cloak of Destiny, League of Assassins Knives, usually on Luchador Bane or Batgirl, with maybe something to give a bare Luchador Bane power by giving Razagul Scimitar, or you can use LexCorp Gauntlets to add more special 1 damage and stun chance. Against non-Red Sun Green Lantern teams, it does a massive amount of special 1 damage.
Yeah.
Right? Because stun, boosted by Cloak of Destiny, crit, and then splash damage to reduce the rest of your team to just 1 health, so when they tag in, they can't take any damage at all. So if you've got no stun, that means no Cloak of Destiny boost. You've got no crit, then the special 1 damage is not that big. And with less special 1 damage, less splash damage. So here's the problem, though. Pretty spectacular, but that's a huge defensive advantage. And it doesn't make your fights go any faster.
And you know, if you've been watching our videos for any length of time, that that's one of the primary things we value. We value how fun and interesting it is to play, what kind of guys that you're facing off against, the percentage of times you can win, and like kind of all the scenarios that you can specifically fight against, like the hardest teams basically, and your ability to counter them.
Yep.
And also how quick the fight is.
Yep.
And that's one of the most important ones. We've even in the past done teams that are a lot kind of closer to riding the edge between not even as good, right? Where you can actually have some really tough fights even if you make small changes, but to have them be like spectacularly
like
fast.
a high wire act.
Yeah.
It comes back to the idea of opportunity cost, right? So we got a Flashpoint team. It relies hugely on the destructive blows doing a huge amount of critical damage, meaning they get through fights way faster than Red Sun team would. But it also means that if you face a Red Sun team, that's a potential weakness because you lose all your crit advantages, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's still a weakness even if you're playing with a Red Sun team against a Red Sun team. And the Red Sun team doesn't have nearly the kind of offensive output, right? And so if you want to give up some of that offense to be a little bit more defensive, then you're not going to get through fights as quickly.
But it's a safer bet.
Yeah. Because when you're facing a team, anything that neutralizes your stun or critical hits is going to make your fights harder. So if you're playing Red Sun Green Lantern team, you're less likely to lose because of that defensive advantage. But the fights, it's still going to take longer.
Yeah.
And if you're playing right against the Red Sun Green Lantern team, excuse me, you shouldn't be losing that anyways, whether you're playing with the Red Sun Green Lantern team or Flashpoint. So bottom line to me is Flashpoint is just the better team.
Yeah, both teams are at the end of the day good though.
I rank them pretty high up, maybe definitely a top 10 team.
Yeah,
but
for
I'd
sure.
have to think a little bit about whether it's a great team or not.
So there we go. The next question comes from Tyson Malstrom, and they say, why no Astro harness on your Injustice 2 soups? And that's on our How to Beat Hackers video.
So here's the thing. Arkham Knight Batman in that team is already our tank. And you stick Astro harness on Injustice 2 soups. It takes up a slot that could be used for offensive gear. And basically Astro harness is a tank kind of gear.
Yeah.
So having 2 tanks on team is a waste. Injustice 2 Superman is our basic damage dealer. We'd be doing less damage with him if we used Astro harness on him. And it maybe, if you're worried about losing, then you need to do that, but not for us.
Yeah, and I think the underlying principle is that it's just because there's no one right gear loadout for any character. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of characters that can become a lot of different things, and Arkham Knight Batman and Injustice 2 Superman are 2 really prime examples of characters who can be used in pretty much any slot you want them to be used in. If you gear them that way, they're going to be good enough to fill that role. And so the reason why we don't need an Astro harness on Injustice 2 Superman is just because that's not the role that he's filling. We've went a different direction with his gear.
Yep.
So there we go. The next and final question,
which is my favorite. We haven't had a question like this. All right, so go ahead. Sorry.
Comes from rayboyman, and they say, I can do pull-ups of 3 sets of 7 times. I'm 250 pounds. What would you recommend to increase my pull-ups?
So the reason why I love this question so much is this is I think it's the first time we've been asked advice about fitness. I mean, there were comments and stuff, but this is the first time where I love this because I've spent so many years. If you've seen our videos, I've spent so many years trying to work up, not pull-ups specifically, but chin-up strength and doing weighted chin-ups. And I think I'm getting close to what the limit of my body is. And it's cool because these are the question you're asking is some variation of it is what I've asked myself to get to the point I am.
And it's also broad enough that we can talk about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean you. I do not have the same kind of
sort of drive.
Useful advice.
Yeah. All right. So for anyone who hasn't seen them, we've got a short playlist of videos having to do with feats of strength. Link is in the description. So what I think I'd like to do is start talking about general principles and then give you a plan of attack for how to apply each one into your training routine. So anytime you're working on a lift or a feat of strength, you want to plan it out or program your approach so that there's a gradual progression. And that might seem, you know, like Captain Obvious kind of obvious, but it's not, because you can progress in along a lot of different axes, and they all work. And it's a matter of figuring out how you want to do it yourself, right? So if you were doing a non-body weight lift, it would probably even seem more obvious. If you want to do 3 sets of 8 at a target weight, which is what you've got, which is 250 pounds, then start with 3 sets of 8 reps at a lower weight that you can handle, and then work your way up incrementally, right?
Yeah, but you can't do that here.
Right, because when you're talking about body weight feats, then the issue would be trying to lose weight, right? All right, so another Captain Obvious thing, like if you were to actually drop 5 or 10 pounds, you would probably be able to hit your target. Like that would make a difference. The key is actually losing the weight, but not losing the strength that it takes, the muscle that you're actually using to do it, right? If you were in a gym, I don't know where you're working out, rayboyman, but there's a device called the Gravitron that can give you a consistent assist through the full range of motion. You could also try kipping during your pull-ups for the reps that you can't finish, because kipping decreases the amount that you need to pull. It gives you a slight advantage.
Explain to me kipping.
All right, so that's when you kick your legs as you do it in a certain way, so that you're taking a little bit of the weight off as you're pulling.
Yeah.
So then they're easier. So that's one of the criticisms of CrossFit, where their pull-ups are typically kipping, but it achieves a different purpose. But a dead hang pull-up without any kipping, without using your lower body, is actually harder. So you're pulling less. Problem with that is that it's hard to kip a consistent amount. So making gradual progress doesn't happen the same way as when you're using a Gravitron. Oh, the other way to deload, take off some of the weight. Some people have used resistance bands, but they give the most help at the bottom and the least at the top, which is fine if you're having trouble at the bottom, but not so good if you're struggling right at the top. All right, so we just talked about one way of progressing. You set your target reps, decrease the weight, and slowly add it back.
And I'd imagine that this is actually probably one of the harder methods out of all of them, because functionally decreasing your weight is difficult when you're doing something body weight, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. I mean, it's simple, but it's one of those things. It's like losing weight. It's a simple idea, but it's not easy to do. Another way is by keeping the reps the same, but you actually increase the weight. So you start where you are. You're doing 7. You find some way to load yourself up with extra weight in small increments, right, while you're maintaining your reps and sets.
Yeah.
I've done it with a weight vest and with the dipping belt, and I guess that was in the videos. This won't take you directly to higher reps, but once your strength improves so that you're doing 3 sets of 7 reps with, I don't know, let's pick some arbitrary number, like 25 pounds, which is 10% of your body weight, rayboyman. When you do some sets without the weight, it's easier, not automatic, but easier to do the 8th rep, because you'll feel like you have more juice in the tank. And if you were training for maximal weight instead of just maximal reps, you could also load more weight to the point where you're working to failure in the maybe 3 or 4 rep range.
Yeah.
So all right, so this isn't a small anecdote. When I was working on my bench press and got my bench press up to 245 pounds, at the time I was body weight of 155, and now I'm like just over 160. Once I got to that bench without doing any kind of training for push-ups, which is the same motion but a body weight feat, I was able to go from the first 40 were easy, and it took me maybe 2 weeks of practice to get up to 80 push-ups in one set, right? Now, no, I'm not trying to mislead you. It took a lot longer to work my bench up to 245, but when you build up your strength, you've got the potential to do higher volume work at a lower intensity by just increasing your maximum weight, or that you're working with, which is basically your maximum strength. So what do we talked about so far? 2 things. Adjusting weight down with the higher reps that you're targeting, or keep the same reps with a higher weight. The other thing you can do is you can also do the same weight, same reps, but do them faster. So, all right, so we talk about different ways to adjust the sets. When you go faster, it can mean a couple of things. Either you pull explosively, like go up really fast, or you get less rest between the sets, so your sets come fast, right? You don't wait so long between. Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're saying you're doing 3 reps of 7 right now. I guess that you'd assume that there's not a huge pause in between that, but technically 3 reps of 7 in one sitting could be like an hour and a half.
Well, yeah, but probably not.
You wouldn't call it that after an hour and a half.
But even the difference between waiting like 30 seconds between sets versus waiting like a minute or 2 minutes can be huge. Now, getting back to the first one, pulling explosively, it's sort of like adding weight. what we're talking about is actually power, because you're generating the same strength over a shorter period of time. So it's not exactly the same, but you get the same benefit. You're pulling harder to get faster, and as long as you're coming down the negative part of the feat, you don't do it any faster, because on the negative, going faster actually makes it easier. As long as you're pulling faster, then you're actually, it's the equivalent benefit of adding weight.
It's joules per second.
There you go.
Instead of an increase in just overall work.
That's right.
In joules.
Right. Now, because you're actually going to be accelerating faster too, right?
Yeah.
So getting back to the taking less rest between sets, if you take less rest between sets, you're training your endurance, even if it's still 3 separate sets, right? And the easiest way to do that is just time how long it takes you to complete 3 sets, and each time aim for doing that faster, and maybe keep an eye or watch so that when you're doing it the next time, you start early enough so that you can finish before your time's up. The less rest you need between sets, better you'll be able to add even just 1 rep to the end of whatever set you're able to do now. Oh, one other method that sort of falls outside of the sort of general principles that's very useful for increasing reps would be something called greasing the groove. I don't remember exactly where I've heard this before or where I heard it first, but it means you're doing pull-ups frequently throughout the day, but never reaching the point of fatigue or exhaustion or failure. So at your current level of 7 reps, I don't know, maybe you can do 3 or 4 reps without any problem, without really like straining yourself too hard. So if that's the case, pick that number of reps and do it like throughout the day. You can do it 10 times, 20 times, whatever, throughout the day. Every time you walk past your pull-up bar, do a set of 3. You could also combine that with a little bit of kipping or jumping up to the bar for a bit of momentum to make it easier if you can't really find a set that you're comfortable with. And that will actually increase your max reps pretty fast, like surprisingly so. So, all right, so I think that's all the kind of tips I've got. But if we put it together, if you want to put it together in something practical, all right, so do sort of once a week, you train pull-ups at body weight for 3 sets of maximum reps. And at this point, it's your 7 or, basically whatever you can get. Once a week, so that's one workout a week. One workout a week, you train pull-ups with 3 sets with extra weight so that you're getting heavier, or you start off heavy enough that you're working at a lower rep set, so you can work at 3 or 4 or stick with 7, but just only add a little bit of weight, right? And then, so those are your 2 workouts. And then throughout the week, you do sub-maximal pull-ups frequently throughout each day and never to the point of failure. And what you should expect to see from this is the gains that you get from this should be reasonably quick and fast enough that you're going to notice a real difference in even just a couple of weeks. And it's only when you hit maybe like 20 or 30 rep sets that the gains will come a lot slower, and that you're going to need to refine things a bit more, and then you'll have to figure out what works best for you to reach the next level. But to me, I think that's sort of my target, between 20 and 30, and I'm not pushing. I'm actually pushing more for max weight than I am for max reps now. So you might want different kind of guidance after that. Oh, and good luck, because I want to know how you do. I want a little bit of feedback to see how much you're able to do with these changes.
So there we go. That was a long question that was maybe not what you were expecting from an Injustice gaming channel, but...
Okay, so going over this question makes me... Because it's been a while since I've tested my max, 1 rep max, like the max weight I can do on a chin-up. And I feel tempted to do it again, but part of me knows that I was saying earlier, I think, right, that I think I've reached a little bit of the limit of what my body can take, because right now I'm just over 160. I failed, I think, at 148. So I think that might be, if I can do 1 at 148, I think I'd be pretty happy. But, people keep on saying that if you keep on pushing yourself, you're going to keep on making gains. It's not how it happens. Because when you start working out, the gains are actually pretty easy. And that they call that newbie gains. But at some point, it's
logarithmic is your rate of increase in strength. Yeah. Or maybe not quite logarithmic. Maybe it's just exponential.
At like less than an exponent that's less than 1.
Yeah, your rate of increase is definitely non-linear, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It starts quick, gets slow.
So that's the good thing is, because I think if you're talking about 3 sets of 7 reps, there's still a good amount of improvement that you can make, not in not too long a period of time. it becomes more difficult because part of the training that I was doing originally was I was looking to try to do one-arm chin-ups. And it's a lot harder than it looks, and it seems. And that's what got me into grip training, actually, because one of the difficulties I had was holding onto the bar with just one hand and generating enough power and strength to pull myself up. So yeah, for those who are just watching along, you'll notice that this is way longer than usual, and we had to add a second run through multiplayer with an ultimate battle.
So there's some bonus content for you. So what do you say? Do you want to finish out the battle, or you want to?
Yeah, I want to finish out the battle. It seems like such a waste to have the fight and not finish it up. So that wasn't too long.
We've got an extra however long we do. You guys will be able to tell more exactly from the video.
Yeah, 39 seconds. I think you're really seeing here in this video why the Flashpoint team, especially at Elite 5, is so good. Maximum battle points. You face a huge variety of guys. You face that kind of trolling, kind of defensive Astro Harness team not that often, and you get some interesting teams. So like, this is interesting. So there's a splash damage, but no Cloak of Destiny. She's gonna be hardy. And Astro Harness. Okay, so Raven's a bit of a pain. We'll just bring in our own Aquaman Astro Harness because we're gonna wait her out, and then we're gonna try to do as much splash damage to the other two as possible.
Yeah.
And Killer Frost is going to be fun because we're going to splash damage her to heck, and it'll be to our advantage that she has the revive with the 4th World Gear set, because that means we can do more damage on her, and none of the hits are going to get wasted. And so we're going to get maximal splash damage on her. But really, Raven with Astro Harness, it's not a great offensive team, and that's the kind of loadout that you'd want on a team that you've sort of picked to be specifically a defensive kind of annoyance, right?
Yeah.
There we go. There's not gonna be much left of her. All right, Killer Frost. Oh, I ran out of power. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Alright, there goes my plan. But you know what? This is what makes the Flashpoint team so good. It's got more than enough power to deal with all of this.
Now, do we have a way of whacking her out?
Yeah, that's okay. She hit us first, which is perfect.
Yikes.
So which means that the trade-off in damage is okay. Yeah, sometimes, you know what? I guess you could always try to fight to not lose any guys, but it means that you're going to sometimes be fighting longer. In this case, I'm actually happier to just get through it faster.
And win.
And sacrifice a couple guys, yeah.
Anything to win and win quick.
Which, like, I think we were saying earlier, it's like riding the edge a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think it makes more interesting fights, too. I think it makes the game more fun, especially when you mess up a little bit and you kind of have to work your way back from there. I think it doesn't feel good to mess up and lose, but if you can mess up and pull it back out, I think it usually actually feels pretty exciting.
Yeah. All right, so what's our last fight? This should be the hardest.
And I know it's more fun to watch.
Yeah. All right, Lexicor gear set is kind of a waste on him because he's already got immunity to power drain. But I guess depending on how you want to fight, because this actually it reverses power drain, right? So when I'm facing him, if I'm facing him with Flashpoint Deathstroke, then I'd be less tempted to use the tap combo and maybe more the swipe combo. There we go, second bar, and now it's worth it to... I love that splash damage. So half his health is already gone.
And then if we do it again, maybe you don't even need to.
There we go. Oh, it took away his revive too. There we go.
That was quick.
Yeah, alright, so much longer episode. But thank you guys so much for watching. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time, I guess.
Yeah.
Komoda.